Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6 and episode number. I keep on having to look every day for some reason. You think I remember? It's only one number up. 928 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian. And of course, as always, Beaverific. And today, in the cup, it is actually just water and not tea because, fortunately, I didn't wake up with as scratchy a throat as I did yesterday. Although I think you can still hear it a little bit. And I don't look like death warmed over. And I actually have some energy. So I slept a lot yesterday. I think after we did the show, I went and had a nap, and I think I slept another 3 hours, which made it such that I threw my schedule off and got to bed a little later. And rather than trying to force myself up, I decided to follow my own advice and be kind to and gentle with myself, practice a little self-care. So hopefully you guys all got the note earlier this morning because I posted it before going to bed that I would be starting a little later, and I thank you for your understanding. I'm feeling not all better, clearly, because colds take a few days, but much better. I was very heavily congested when I went to bed last night, but had a decongestant earlier this morning, and right now it's like I'm at peak clearance. My oxygen saturation rate is at its best right now. So I figured this was the time to come on and do the show because at some point the decongestant peters out. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him. Hey, Mr. Beaver. Oh, well, my God. Sorry, I got interrupted because I just looked to the side and had a wonderful compliment. Here, Douglas can wear anything. That color would make me look like death. It's apparently my skin tone makes me an autumn, and apparently earth colors are good for autumns. So this sort of like a fall leaf turning yellow is really works. So apparently works well for me. So there you go. But thank you for noticing. You sure know how to make a queen feel special. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him. Hey, Mr. Beaver, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Got a packed show for you today, and hopefully, like I said, my energy is better, my focus is better, my reading skills are maybe better. So, my head is a little less foggy, so hopefully this show will be a whole lot less disjointed and it's a little bit all over the place than yesterday's. How is your mental health doing today? I'm doing much better as a result. Yesterday, like I said, very slow day, didn't really do much until the evening, and then started getting head on little things. But a day of rest was needed, so a day of rest is what was taken, and I feel really good about it, to be totally honest. Not guilty at all. So yeah, I'm in good spirits, which I need to be for today's show because there's certain things in here that again make me want to swear in French. So that we will be talking about. So I'm glad that I'm in a sunny disposition in order to be able to do it, or else this could be a really heavy and dour show. Otherwise, if I was in a bit of a mood today. Um, so let's see. Uh, I guess we should just jump right into it today. I want to talk about a few things. Number one, um, uh, Ronald Rump roast south of us, again, thinking that it's time to play one of his only two or three cards that he plays by claiming, once again, we don't have anything that they have and trying to, create some tension or disarray up here about where he stands on Kuzma. Um, if he tried it, he failed, but we'll get into that. We also have, if we also have Charlie Angus, who made a call out. We talked about it a little bit yesterday, where he was asking people to write, I believe, the new. I can't remember the name of the position, if it's the director or the officer, but basically the parliamentary watchdog on foreign interference to look into what the Alberta separatists leaders have been doing. And there's a petition that we've been talking about that goes along with that. So we'll talk about that today. I stumbled upon an opinion piece from an actual small c conservative that sees the same things going on with Pierre and the Conservative Party as we do. So I wanted to bring it to you because, on the show, I do mention that, they are out there, real, actual, genuine conservatives, that it could actually be helpful to any societal debate that we're having. I found one. I found the unicorn. There's more than one. I'm kidding. But it was just such a well-written piece and thoughtful that I thought, even though I don't agree with everything in it, I would bring it because, again, we're a nonpartisan show and we want all voices that are good faith voices participating in the debate, and we have no problem highlighting it. So we're going to bring that to you, and hopefully, if there is still time, we're going to talk about briefly, probably about the government of Canada's plan to follow Premier Wab Kinew of Manitoba's lead on social media and looking at some restrictions for Canadian citizens who are 16 years of age and under, or under 16 years of age. Can't remember if it's specifically 16 and under or just under 16. So a lot to go through. And there's a couple of other things that I would like to be able to throw into the mix if we have some time. So let's just get into it today. Beulah, he's at it again. Donald Trump took a break from whatever else has been distracting him of late to once again attempt to troll us in a meeting, which I do not need to show you the visual. I was thinking of doing it so you can see and hear him say it, but you probably said it. And if I was to do that, I should probably maybe take a tip, if I knew how to do that, from I think it's Klaus Kellerman, who every time he shows Trump, he has like a black bar over his face. Which I think is just brilliant, brilliantly passive aggressive, just and totally Canadian. So won't show you. He doesn't need more screen time. He's got enough. However, basically the same. Donald Trump, right? The whole thing, the art of the deal. We're starting to see his playbook now, right? And always bully, push, threaten, coerce, all that type of stuff. And in this case with Canada, try to sow division, right? The type of statement that he made yesterday. If conservatives are going to follow the predictable playbook, they're going to have that saying, "Oh my God, Donald Trump is threatening to pull out of Kuzma. And, oh my God, everything's going to hell in a handbasket. It's all Mark Carney's fault because he didn't appease him enough, or wasn't nice enough to him, or decided to make a deal with China for 49,000 EVs, or woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or was born in a certain year, or whatever." But whatever it is, right? It's Mark Carney's fault. We are dealing with again, when it comes to the Conservative Party, one of the 14 characteristics of fascism, stated by philosopher Umberto Eco, the enemy is both too strong and too weak. Right? Mark Carney single-handedly caused a full-blown liberal recession that nobody who understands anything about economics and is worth their salt is actually agreeing with Pierre with. But he has that much control that he can single-handedly go into a negotiation that has three parties, because Mexico's part of it, but let's just say two, because Pierre likes to frame it that way, between the United States and Canada, and impose some type of deal that Donald Trump would agree to. Right? Because apparently Mark Carney is supposed to be able to create a deal single-handedly that both are going to agree to. Just the other side apparently plays no role in it, according to Pierre's logic here. So it's all Mark Carney's fault. Yet Mark Carney is so stupid that he's terribly educated in economics, even though he went to. He's got a PhD in economics from Oxford, and every decision he makes on everything is wrong. Right? Too strong, too weak, too smart, and too dumb. Too right at the same time. That's a typical trope of people who like to engage in fascism. Right? What Justin Trudeau was single-handedly controls the global price of oil and is trying to decimate Alberta's oil sector. Too dumb to remember to show up at a debate wearing pants, unless we tell him to. Right? Typical fascist rhetoric. So you have Donald Trump doing the thing that he does and saying, once again, that Canada and Mexico don't have anything that the United States needs. He added Mexico this time. I don't know if that was the first time. It's the first time it kind of picked my ear, because usually he only talks about us. And of course, that he's willing to cancel or whatever it is with Kuzma. Just going to take a little look here. I believe there was something in the Globe and Mail. Bill Curry, Laura Stone, and Mark Rendell rating here. Donald Trump said he's not looking to renew the North American Trade Pact as Prime Minister Mark Carney met virtually with Canada's Prime Ministers Wednesday to talk strategy. Speaking with reporters in the Oval Office, the U.S. President repeated his past comments that the United States doesn't need anything from Canada and Mexico. Quote, "I'm not looking to renew it," Mr. Trump said before noting that he approved the 2018 United States-Mexico-Canada agreement to replace the North American Free Trade Agreement during his first term, and seems to have added a little more to his rhetoric about it, because if you remember at the time, right, he called it the largest, fairest, most balanced, and modern trade agreement ever achieved. His words. That's actually a quote. But now, apparently, the reason why it was so good is because there's now the ability, so he claims, to not renew it. Quote, "I made the deal, and the primary reason I made the deal is that NAFTA was the worst trade deal I've ever seen. USMCA did one thing that I loved. After 6 years, it comes up for renewal. I don't know that I'm going to renew it." He's actually factually incorrect about that. After 6 years, it comes up for review. Not renewal, review. The review of the changes that we made 6 years ago. How are they working? Is everybody happy with this? We're satisfied? We could continue? Do we need to tweak something? Yeah, we're all good. Right? This is something that should take only a couple weeks, really. Maybe a few months at the most. Right? It's not a wholesale comprehensive renewal of the entire deal. It's a review of it with the changes that we made. Right? But he's calling it a renewal because, well, words mean nothing when you're Trump. And I don't know that I'm going to renew it. Of course, that eternally firm nailing Jello to a wall position. Not, I'm not going to renew it, or yes, I'm going to renew it. I don't know that I'm going to renew it, which of course makes Canada, or many Canadians at least, armchair at home. And I'm like, then what the hell are we doing wasting our time talking to you about? Seriously, if we don't have anything that you need and you don't know yet, still after all this time, whether or not you're going to renew it, well, then just like just bugger off. Just get out of our lives and go already. Like, stop wasting our MFing time. It's like, we didn't ask for this. We don't want it. We don't need it. You're the one that's crying. You're the one that's whining. You're the one that's saying that Canada is so unfair. Yeah, the big old mean Canada, all 40 million of us. This with the the 10th or 11th largest economy in the world, which even though that's very enviable by global standards, completely dwarfed by yours. Yes, we are so terrible and so mean and taking so much advantage of you to the point that you need to fall apart like this and lose mastery of yourself in public. I'm- If we literally did have that much power, don't you think we would be using it a little more um, insistently at this moment, like the way you are? Like, nobody's going to believe, right? Except for the people, again, who chug the Trump Kool-Aid like they're at a Pete Hegseth keg party. Um, Nobody's going to believe this, right? It's all bunk. It's all BS. And he's done and he's said this stuff before. It's all been debunked already. And the thing about this that I'm going to say Mr. Trump because I don't even want to say president anymore with this guy. The thing that Mr. Trump appears to have not caught on to yet is that Canadians have already called this bluff. I believe the quote exactly is, "We firmly believe that no deal is better than a bad deal." We've called this bluff. Ronald Rump Rose has already walked away from the table. And we didn't go, "Oh, please, please, please come back." He walked away, and we were like, okay, he'll come back when he's ready. Let him cry himself out. We didn't react, right? And as the saying goes, there's nothing sadder than a neglected attention whore. So Donald Trump is playing the only card again. Give me attention. I'm going to walk away from the deal. It's like, that 3 or 4 year old, has a little backpack that says, "I'm running away from home now. I'm going to run away. I'm really going to do it now." Walking, putting his hand to the door. "I'm going now." Puts the hand on the door. "Watch me go. Watch." Like, and mom's at home. Is like, "Okay, have fun." Dinner's at 6. Right? Gonna have to eat sometime. Come back home when you're ready. We'll miss you. Bye. Right? Um, it's emotional blackmail. It's manipulation. It's an attempt to divide and conquer to get the conservatives, who he knows are on his side and that are perfectly willing to try to tarnish the reputation of Mark Carney at home, to try to pressure him to make a bad deal earlier. Except Canadians are not buying it. We see it in the public opinion polls. We see it in our choice for preferred prime minister. We see it on his personal approval rating. Canadians are not buying in to the conservative shtick, and we were over Donald Trump long ago, right? This was something that we had hoped to have done by, as Pierre Poilievre keeps on reminding us, by the end of July last year, because that's the amount of time that this should have taken between April and July of last year. With any other president, someone minimally normal and tethered to reality, right? This would have been, yeah, we done the review. Look, okay, we need to tweak these few things. Okay, yes, we're all going to do this. Sign, sign, sign. Go, hey, shake hands. Boom, we're gone. That awkward 3-person handshake. With the, and we're on to living our merry lives. But of course, he wants to do the tariff thing, and he keeps on getting slapped down because all of his tariffs are illegal. And then he tries to find other avenues and opens other investigations to try to create new pretexts to introduce new tariffs. We've been through this, right? We know the game. We know how it's played. We saw how he did it the first time around as well, when we got the better of him so much that he hated Chrystia Freeland, like you could not believe. Um, but yeah, we know what to do. We know not to panic. Again, we happen happily to have a prime minister at the moment who is not only more knowledgeable about finance and economics than anybody in the Trump administration. A prime minister who, as a central banker, understands the power of the bond market and knows just how bad the U.S. debt is, and knows is keenly aware of how U.S. bond yields are affecting certain situations, and how much leverage that truly leaves the United States in that negotiating room. We also have a prime minister that has a stellar global reputation and much convening power. And one phone call to Germany, for all intents and purposes, and one phone call to Japan. And together, these three countries could probably do a little dance, make a little love with the bond market, such that there would be so much pressure on Donald Trump in not a lot of time. That then, if he went to Mike and said, Canada's being so mean to us, he'd say, damn straight we are. Finally, you got one right. So there is no need to get into a lather to froth up about this, as some might want to do. It is just Trump's usual empty rhetoric. Goes on to say here in this article, Mr. Carney did not respond when asked on Parliament Hill about the president's comment that he's not looking to renew the trade deal. He did respond when asked Wednesday morning about his meeting with the premiers, saying briefly that the focus would be, quote, on the U.S. and electricity strategy, including Canada's pledge to double electricity generation in Canada, which we reported back when he made that announcement to double the electricity grid, I think, by 2050. Mr. Carney and the premiers met virtually early Wednesday afternoon. The three countries are meant to decide on July 1st whether to extend the treaty for another 16 years. If they don't agree to an extension, the treaty will remain in force, but the countries will move to a period of annual reviews for 10 years. Now, of course, there's always the option with 6 months' notice of a country to say that they're going to pull out. But then again, Trump has some midterms coming, and the stock market, Donald Trump really likes the stock market, and the stock market's been a little shakier the last little bit. There's been some adjustment in the high tech and the AI sector. Rising bond yields in the United States have made the price of gold drop. The governor of the Bank of Canada announced that interest rates will remain at 2.25% here in Canada. We're still waiting to hear from the FOCM in the United States, but we had inflation numbers come out from the United States yesterday, and they're in at 4.2%. Now, ours that are going to come out will certainly be higher than they were before, we would assume, given the stuff, everything that's gone on with the price of gas. But we're starting from a 2.8. The United States started from a 3.8 and went up to 4.2. So we have better credit rating. We can borrow money at less cost. We have a lower inflation rate. We had a BOFO employment number that came in that per capita created so many more jobs than the United States, and particularly full-time jobs, because the headline number reported was 88,000, but there was really 154,000 full-time jobs created because we lost 69,000 part-time jobs. Maybe some of those part-time jobs were converted into full-time jobs. You never know. And the sectors of growth in the jobs in both countries are completely different as well. Much more career-oriented and higher paying jobs in Canada were created than in the United States as well. We are looking at relationships with allies. Ours are better. Direct foreign investment in Canada is high. Prospects for the future are good. We just reported that we have an increased trade surplus, and we're looking at the United States, all this turmoil that they caused with us to go from a $72 billion trade deficit to a $70 billion trade deficit after a year. Great job there, Sparky. You really did good there. Uh, it is. We really have no reason to worry. And there's also, we found out news yesterday that even though Donald Trump his ability to affect our metals sector, like copper and steel, did work on aluminium. It's failed spectacularly. And we even recently got a concession from the United States where tariffs on certain things were going to be dropped from 25%, I think, to 15%, because this is not working for the United States at all. Yes. And hopefully we'll bring you a little bit more about that on the aluminum thing a little later on. Um, Says here, officials from all three countries have said that they expect negotiations to continue beyond July 1st, meaning the annual review scenario is much more likely, and any of the countries can withdraw from the agreement within 6 months' notice, as mentioned. Canada-US Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc sought to downplay the significance of the July 1st deadline, and we've been doing that for a while now, telling reporters earlier this month that it's important not to set up a cliff that doesn't exist. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe told reporters Wednesday that such comments can be expected as part of the negotiations towards a new trade deal. Quote, there's going to be a lot of rhetoric that will occur as we go through this review process, he said in Calgary on the sidelines of the Global Energy Show Canada. Quote, our goal is to get a preferred nation trade deal with the United States, preferably looks something like what the CUSMA deal we have today is. That's our goal. We won't be responding to daily comments that come out of the White House or even at times come out of various levels of Canadian leadership. My God, what happened to Scott Moe? The Scott Moe, the version of Scott Moe who answered this is a version of Scott Moe I could actually get behind. Now, of course, I'm saying that we know everything else to be true about Scott Moe, so I really couldn't. But this version, the version that we've been seeing for the past few months, where he's going to the trade missions with China and getting deals, and sitting at that table at the Western Premiers Summit, and while Danielle Smith and Wab Kinew are going at it, he's just sitting there looking like, God, I want to disappear. Right? I mean, we even got Scott Moe on board. Okay. So far, the Trump administration has chosen to approach the trade talks on a bilateral basis, beginning formal negotiations with Mexico last month without Canada at the table. That's because Mexico has so many more issues that are way more intense to resolve than we do. There actually is a migration issue, and there actually is a drug issue there with Canada. He's just pretending that there is. And the thing here, as well, is when Scott Moe says that there's going to be a lot of rhetoric, remember that all the rhetoric coming from the United States is first for domestic consumption. Right? His approval ratings are in the toilet. Right? Even in Texas, there's public opinion polling that's indicating that James Tallarico could either win. There's one poll that says he's leading 47-45 over Paxton. Another one says that he's trailing something like 45-43 or something. But Republicans are actually going to have to spend money in Texas in order to secure Texas, which means less money, to spend in other places. It is not going well for him. And the other thing that we know is that if Donald Trump literally did give the signal, at least before the midterms, that he was willing to pull out of this, the stock market would have an adjustment and a reaction that would be so quick that Trump would probably taco himself on that anyway, 2 or 3 days later. So if you know on which side your bread is buttered, and a lot of Americans do, they know that this is a dumb idea and it's not workable, and that would just do more damage. It's like not opening the Gordie Howe Bridge, right? More of their stuff comes into Canada than we have stuff going into there. So you're only kicking yourself in the teeth by not opening up the bridge. You're doing more harm to yourself than you're doing to us, right? U.S. trade officials said they're looking to resolve bilateral concerns with each of Canada and Mexico, and to make trilateral changes to USMCA with the goal of boosting US content and reducing Chinese parts in North American supply chains. For the crucial auto sector, the US has proposed raising the North American content requirement to 82% from 75% and introducing a rule that 50% of a car must be made of US parts to receive preferential tariffs. This- Again, the United States can only push so far on that because if the rest of us decide, for example, if that Hanwha deal comes in and we're going to start building like more smaller military vehicles or stuff like that, or different purpose vehicles in Canada rather than passenger cars, we'll still have some type of automotive industry, and the United States will only have an industry that caters pretty much to itself because its products are less and less desirable around the world. And uh, they wouldn't make much profit because, based on auto numbers, pretty much the entirety of the US based profit from the auto manufacturing sector comes from their sales of US made cars in Canada. So if we just stop buying them, right, there would be no real reason, maybe except for people who really do need an F 150 for some reasons, to buy an American car anymore if the United States were going to treat us that way. So their auto industry eventually would crash and burn, and the people who run that know it. So these are all empty threats. The main goal for Canada and Mexico in the trade talks is getting some relief from the sectoral tariffs the US has placed on key industries such as automobiles, steel, aluminium, and lumber, while preserving the carve out from other US tariffs offered to USMCA compliant goods. Any resolution could involve separate deals for Mexico and Canada. America's top trade official, Jameson Greer, has said he wants to preserve the pillars of the USMCA while layering separate bilateral deals with Canada and Mexico on top. Um, Again, if the United States is prepared to walk away from the deal, why do they have all of these negotiators coming at the table? So we've already said that a bad deal is that no deal is better than a bad deal. So we've already indicated that if you want to walk away, then fine, walk away. Um, we have been diversifying our trade. We've been doing actually much better at it than we thought we would. Now, of course, um, we're not going to get to a point where we can circumnavigate the United States altogether. There's always going to be some type of trade with them, but um, the more the more we can sign these deals with other nations, especially longer term deals, right? Uh, the better it is for us because we become less exposed to a single point of failure. According to the Globe and Mail here, there's an article that came out just 2 days ago here that says that we have some mixed results at the moment, which is normal because we're only about 1 year into it. Right? It's not like everything that we're going to do is going to work right away and bang on all cylinders. But according to Sophia Bertuzzi, trade diversification is a key pillar of Mark Carney's economic agenda. Just over a year into his tenure as prime minister, statistics suggest the results are mixed so far. In April, around 31% of the country's goods exports went to non-US trading partners, Statistics Canada reported on Tuesday. That's among the highest proportions since 1997 and about up 5 percentage points since US President Donald Trump began to wage his trade wars on Canada in the spring of 2025. In dollar terms, overseas exports have frequently hit new record highs during this tumultuous period. So, before it seemed to be, I'm guessing from what I remember, it was about 75% of our trade went to the United States. Now we're at 69% or so, right? Uh, that's just in a year. And we could say even perhaps a little less because, um, you know, uh, when Mark Carney became prime minister, yes, he started working on such things right away. Um, But before the very first deal or something was signed and the first shipments started reorienting somewhere else, there was probably a little lag time in there. So a 5% turnaround right from the beginning is actually not negligible, right? Now that this process is underway, because we don't have to do much more setup, and we've already started talking to a lot of nations, I wouldn't be surprised if at this point next year we hear that the trade diversification was greater than an extra 5% in the year that follows this. Because now, we're starting to hit our stride. But the numbers have been flattened by the run up in the price of gold, a volatile asset that's moderated since March, and lately elevated oil prices are once again boosting trade with the United States, the predominant customer for Canadian crude. Again, if we have absolutely nothing that the United States needs, somebody did not clue Donald Trump in to the sheer number of refineries in the United States that rely on Canadian crude. In fact, there is an American who had posted something about this yesterday, trying to get through uh, to his compatriots, Patrick Dehan, who goes by at Gas Buddy Guy, um, and states here that a few refineries that can't survive without Canadian oil: BP Whiting in Indiana, MPC Detroit in Michigan and Robinson, Illinois, Cenovus Toledo, Ohio, and Lima, Ohio, PSX Wood River in Illinois, Citgo Lamont in Illinois, XOM Joliet in Illinois, CHS Billings in Montana, Sinclair Laurel in Montana and Cheyenne, Wyoming, Tesadoro Mandan in North Dakota, Suncor Denver, and Colorado. A lot of these happen to be red states. If Canada simply decided, okay, buddy, we don't have anything that you need, and you want to cancel it, okay, then let's not renew it, and now you can get this crude not at a discount, plus the basic World Trade Organization tariff that goes on everything. Happy midterms. It's like, I, I mean, uh, I don't understand the strategy because it fails before it comes out of his mouth. Foreign trade diversification is making, quote, very nice progress, clearly reflecting some desire by exporters to diversify our economic export engine, said Benjamin Tal, deputy chief economist at CIBC Capital Markets. However, Mr. Tal cautioned that the early returns are, quote, low hanging fruit, and it's very difficult to continue at this rate for another year. Possibly, possibly not. Last fall, the Carney government set a goal of doubling non-US trade over a decade to $600 billion a year. Canada has typically shipped around three-quarters of its total good exports to the United States, a major benefit historically, but now seen as a liability as the White House has turned protectionist. To boost foreign trade, Mr. Carney has been jet-setting across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East to deepen those relationships, and the federal government is trying to sign free trade agreements with India and with South America's Mercosur trading bloc by the end of the year. Diversifying trade is easier said than done. Exporters can find it challenging to navigate supply chains, regulations, and language barriers in securing new clients overseas, particularly for smaller firms. Canada has nearly 48,000 goods exporting enterprises, according to StatsCan, of which 82% employ fewer than 50 people. To date, the returns on diversification have been limited. Booming gold prices have helped to lift non-US exports to roughly one-third of Canada's total in recent months, but after removing gold from the numbers, non-US countries account for about 23% of exports this year, only slightly higher than before the trade war. Now, that is an important mitigating number. Analysis by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce found that although exports to non-US markets jumped by 17% between 2024 and 2025, much of that growth came from existing exporters expanding their reach rather than new firms extending global markets. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. If people with whom we already have good trading relationships were right at the door and saying, you know what, let's make some changes while waiting for other things to come online, that's actually good for us. Additionally, the report found that diversification is being driven by a concentrated group of companies, sectors, and cities, while many other highly U.S. integrated regions continue to face limited diversification momentum and weakened economic growth. Quote, for smaller firms, the constraint is structural because many are embedded in North American supply chains built around proximity, recurring customer relationships, integrated logistics, and production specifications that are not easily replicated overseas, read a recent report from the National Bank Financial. Tuesday's StatsCan report showed that exports to non-U.S. countries fell by 4.8% in April. Spot gold prices have fallen by around 20% since early March. In turn, exports of unwrought gold, silver, and platinum plunged by 26% in April, driven by lower shipments of gold to the United Kingdom, StatsCan said. Meantime, exports to the United States rose 4.8% in April, a third consecutive monthly increase that was buoyed by crude oil and vehicle shipments. Canada's merchandise trade surplus with the U.S. expanded to $9.5 billion in April, the largest surplus since February 2025. But Donald Trump was seeking to reduce that. Clearly, what he's doing is not working. The United States-Mexico-Canada agreement's up for review on July 1st, at which point the member countries can renew the deal for 16 years. Not renew, review the deal without another review happening for the next 16 years, unless everybody agrees to it. That is, however, an unlikely outcome, as the countries have said trade talks will extend beyond a new review date. If not renewed, the USMCA would remain in force with annual reviews for another 10 years, after which it would expire. Any of the three countries can also withdraw from the agreement with 6 months' notice, as I mentioned before. Mr. Carney has recently shifted his rhetoric on trade. Speaking in New York last month, he called for a new partnership with the U.S. and said Canada is open to more cooperation inside of Fortress North America in key industries including autos, steel, and aluminium. While the U.S. and Mexico have begun formal negotiations over the USMCA, Canada has yet to sit at the bargaining table. Actually, that's not true. While the U.S. and Mexico have begun formal negotiations over the USMCA, Canada is still sitting at the initial table that we did not walk away from. The U.S. did. Quote, at the end of the day, we are very close to the U.S., Mr. Tal said. Of course we are. Of course we are. That doesn't mean we have to like it. And it doesn't mean we have to go out of our way to be neighborly if they are not being decent with us. As well, there's this piece by Mark Crawley here that says, Trump is unlikely to rip up CUSMA, his trade deal with Canada and Mexico, and here's why. Despite U.S. President Donald Trump once again flexing his power to scrap his country's free trade deal with Canada and Mexico, there's plenty of reason to doubt he would actually follow through on such a threat. Trump signed the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement in his first term, and at that time boasted of it as the most modern, up-to-date, and balanced trade agreement in the history of our country. This term, Trump has dismissed CUSMA as irrelevant, floated, letting it expire, and reportedly muses to aides about withdrawing. On Wednesday, he told reporters at the White House he's not looking to renew. However, not looking to renew the deal is not the same as terminating it. Even without a renewal, the agreement remains in force until 2036. That changes only if a country gives 6 months formal notice of its intention to withdraw. Canadian Mexican negotiators have been expecting that the U.S. would not simply renew CUSMA, but instead would push for changes to the deal at the negotiating table. Here are 5 reasons to believe Trump won't rip up CUSMA. Influential lobby groups representing every major sector of the U.S. economy are urging the Trump administration to renew CUSMA, or USMCA as it's called south of the border. This includes manufacturing, the sector that Trump argues will be the most reinvigorated by his worldwide tariff regime. The National Association of Manufacturers published a report in May that heaps effusive praise on CUSMA. The report calls the trade deal, quote, one of President Trump's signature accomplishments from his first term, and catalogs its record of bringing more jobs, investments, and export to U.S. factories. Quote, the USMCA is a pillar for the greatness of manufacturing in the United States, the report said. We must preserve and strengthen this historic agreement. As you can see, there's a lot of fluffing of Donald Trump in those lines. Okay, right? The USMCA is a pillar for the greatness of manufacturing. One of the signature accomplishment of his first term. It's a historic agreement. All the superlatives, the language that Trump likes to speak. At the very moment Trump was threatening not to renew CUSMA on Wednesday, key leaders of the politically powerful agricultural industry were on Capitol Hill praising the trade deal and calling for an extension. The association representing General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis calls the deal, quote, the most vital trade agreement for America's automakers. Like I said, because we represent their profit. and is urging the Trump administration to preserve it. While these and other sectors do want some of CUSMA's terms amended, there are no major industry groups in the U.S. calling for the deal to be scrapped. None. None are calling for it to be scrapped. So, yeah. What can I say? What can I say? You had Premier Eby stating, if Donald Trump doesn't want to renegotiate CUSMA, then he should respect the agreement instead of attacking Canadian industries and workers. Goes, this sequel to The Art of the Deal is pretty lame. Let's have see Mr. Eby here. Premier Eby.
And of that would be that it was a good and constructive conversation, obviously overshadowed a little bit by the comments of the president that he is not necessarily looking to renew the CUSMA agreement. The technical implications, I understand, of that would be that this would be a 10-year rather than a 16-year agreement. And obviously 16 years would be more desirable for British Columbia and Canada to have that stability. But a bit bizarre, if the president doesn't want to renegotiate CUSMA, then what are we doing? Like, let's just get on with business. Let's have both sides respect the agreement, and let's continue with the existing CUSMA agreement. And to be blunt, you know, this sequel to The Art of the Deal is pretty lame. It's for the main deal maker from the United States to say he's not even interested in a deal or having the conversations is a fairly significant departure. And let's just then continue trading the way that we were before, the way that was driving down prices for Americans and Canadians, and employing people on both sides of the border and working for everybody. So let's get on with it.
Pretty much. Right? Let's just get on with it. Stop wasting our time. We're not impressed. Number 2, July 1st marks 6 years since CUSMA took effect, and it's also the date set in the text of the agreement for formal review by the 3 countries. In that review, the options are A, extending the agreement for another 16 years, or B, reviewing it annually either until it expires or a deal is reached to extend it. Canada and Mexico both want option A and have said they're willing to negotiate tweaks. The White House has not made its position public. However, the U.S. has jumped into formal talks with Mexico on renewal, holding one negotiating round in late May with 2 more scheduled for the next week and late July. That's being read as a sign of an administration that is more interested in renegotiating the agreement than withdrawing from it. Quote, the negotiations will focus on ensuring that the USMCA benefits U.S. manufacturers, farmers, ranchers, workers, and service suppliers, and businesses of all size, said the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer. CUSMA is number 3. CUSMA is crucial to the Canadian economy because it covers some $1.3 trillion in cross-border trade with the U.S. and shields roughly 90% of Canada's exports from Trump's tariffs. Although the U.S. has not entered the same kind of formal negotiations with Canada as it has with Mexico, the top trade officials from each country held fresh online and face-to-face talks over the past few weeks. The tone Canada is hearing in its new talks with the White House is far different from the Trump-led antagonism of last year, according to Flavio Volpe, president of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association and a member of Ottawa's Key Advisory Committee on the Canada-U.S. relations. Quote, these are real conversations on substantive items in a posture that sounds like partners that want to work things out and stay together rather than preparing for a permanent separation, Volpe told CBC News on Wednesday. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, Canada's chief negotiator Janice Charette, met with Greer and his team in Washington last week. While LeBlanc didn't provide details, he said Canada put proposals on the table to address what he called, quote, longstanding issues that the United States has raised with us. Prime Minister Mark Carney said last week that the number of trade irritants the U.S. has with Canada is about half as many as it has with Mexico. Carney is also signaling something of a shift in his own tone towards the United States with the speech to a New York business audience pitching the idea that Canada, and again, this is not written correctly, it says Canada can help make America great again, but the quote was Canada strong can help make America great again. In other words, the Canada strong that we are planning, that we are undertaking, that the course that we are on, the path we have chosen for ourselves, can help make America great again. Then there's the political pressure point. There's an argument to be made that Trump and his Republican Party have enough political troubles on their plate without the economic time bomb that a notice of withdrawal from CUSMA would almost certainly trigger. Figures released on Wednesday show the U.S. inflation rate hit 4.2% in May, the highest it's been in 3 years. Trump's approval rating is averaging below 40%, threatening to drag down the Republicans' prospect of maintaining their slim holds on the House and the Senate when the midterms come up in November. A growing number of Republicans in Congress have shown, quote, their willingness to oppose Trump when he pushes policies that they believe will hurt their re-election chances. It's hard to see how tearing up CUSMA would help Trump on any of those fronts. There's no consistent polling that suggests scrapping the trade deal would be politically popular, nor any solid economic research that suggests it would make the cost of living any cheaper. Instead, there's plenty of research documenting how the U.S. economy has benefited from the growth of free trade with Canada and Mexico. And fifth, while it's true that Trump can at any moment give 6 months' notice to withdraw from CUSMA, his threats have not yet gone that far. On Wednesday, although Trump said, what's great about CUSMA is the right to terminate, he didn't actually threaten to end it. Talking tough in public is a classic Trump negotiating tactic, says William Pellerin, an international trade lawyer with Macmillan LLP in Ottawa. Quote, ultimately, this is the modus operandi of the U.S. administration to really play a tough approach, Pellerin told the CBC News Network on Wednesday. Even if Trump does threaten to pull his country out of the arrangement, it's far from clear he actually has the power to do so with the stroke of his presidential Sharpie. Quote, the United States cannot withdraw from a congressionally approved trade agreement without the consent of Congress, concluded the Republican-led Senate Finance Committee in its 2020 report on CUSMA. And since the Republicans in Congress really do want to get reelected, and a lot of them live in states that very much benefit from CUSMA, there's almost no chance whatsoever that Congress would agree to that. And even less chance that the Senate would sanction it. So, Charlie Brown's teacher. That's basically what's coming out of Trump's mouth. He's got nothing. So we just keep calm and carry on. Or keep calm and carny on, as we would say. Interesting note here, as I mentioned, about our aluminium sector and how that has been able to resist the pressure that Donald Trump has been putting on us. There was a great piece in the Globe and Mail about that yesterday. Let's see if I can find that for you. Right there. There we go. This is it. It says here that this is Frédéric Lacroix-Couture from the Canadian Press that says Quebec aluminium smelters more resilient than expected despite the U.S. tariffs. And in this article, there's a section that says, we're not losing money by doing this. On the contrary, we're making money right now because the price is very high. And this is according to Jean Simard, who's the president and CEO of the Aluminium Association of Canada, who also says that the industry is operating at 95% capacity because, well, there's very few places on earth that is cheaper to make aluminium than in Quebec, given all the hydroelectricity and given what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz, which is the United States' secondary source of aluminium. They're not getting any, so they need ours. And with all the tariffs and everything that Trump has put on, according to the organization, which is the Aluminium Association of Canada, a ton of aluminum now costs $2,000 US more in the United States than in Europe. So whatever the US is doing, they've just raised their costs of producing anything that has aluminium by $2,000 more per ton than Europe, which makes the price of their products less competitive. Despite a, quote, 36% decline in Quebec's metallurgical export volumes between February 25 and February 2026, and a 3.6% decline in employment for the industry as a whole, in 2025, primarily in smelters, and this is reported by Quebec Statistical Institute and an industry association for the metal manufacturing and metal processing sector, and these are numbers for aluminium, copper, and steel. The aluminium sector specifically, however, saw a 5% increase in employment. So that backfired. That portion of the plan completely and totally backfired on the United States. Trump, incredible economic and very stable genius. So, right, there's nothing there. So, call the bluff. Call the bluff. There's no need to get worked up about this. And again, should he attempt to walk away, again, the reaction of the markets are going to be rather sharp and very quickly felt. I have very little doubt of that. All right, moving on to another subject that we have for you today, kids and cubs. It was Charlie Angus yesterday was at on Parliament Hill in the press room that is available for community organizations and individuals of the like that would like to bring some national attention to some of the files that they are pursuing. And at this venue, as you know, kids and cubs, we have been sharing a petition. This is House of Commons, ourcommons.ca petition E7124, the link of which I'm going to put in the chat right now since we're talking about it, that calls on the House of Commons to formally review the conduct of U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra should the review find that Ambassador Hoekstra's actions are inconsistent with diplomatic protocol or detrimental to Canada's interest. The Government of Canada take appropriate diplomatic measures, including the possible request for his recall. That is one of the things. And then the other one that we have here, and this is the one that, I mean, they both apply, but this one will probably apply more, which is ourcommons.ca petition E7340, which I will also put up. So a little early democracy is something that you do here on the show today, kids, which calls upon the House of Commons in Parliament to invoke its authority under Section 53 of the Supreme Court Act to refer the constitutionality of Alberta's Justice Statutes Amendment Act of 2025 to the Supreme Court of Canada, and to direct the Foreign Influence and Transparency Commissioner to immediately investigate the meetings between the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Trump administration. And Mr. Angus was on the Hill to speak specifically of that latter point involving the Foreign Influence and Transparency Commissioner. And of course, yesterday, as we showed you, there was a letter writing campaign that Mr. Angus is trying to start to get us to write to the office of the Commissioner itself to make our views known, in addition to this petition, that we would like that indeed to be the case. So here we have yesterday from Parliament Hill, Charlie Angus making a call for a public inquiry into foreign interference connected to the Alberta separatist movement specifically. And I'm going to present that for you right here, kids and cubs. Need to change from Mr. Eby to Mr. Angus. And there we have it. And let's make that nice and big. And here we go.
Good morning, bonjour à tous. Charlie Angus. This past week, the ambassador of a foreign country, Pete Hoekstra, publicly stated that Canada's sovereignty would be a great discussion in the upcoming trade negotiations with the Trump administration. Mr. Hoekstra reveals his contempt for Canada, our history, our values, but it also signals an escalating level of foreign interference and intimidation from the Washington regime, and we must take these threats very seriously. I am particularly concerned about attempts to destabilize our nation by promoting the Alberta separatist cause. We have seen an explosion of online foreign actors spreading disinformation and hate about Canada and Alberta. This pattern of fake pages and offshore bot farms to stoke division is right out of the Brexit playbook. I was on the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Online Interference following the Cambridge Analytica scandal, I participated in the international hearings of electoral interference in London and then in Washington. We saw the pattern of foreign actors exploiting front groups and stolen personal data to upend democratic elections. It was a playbook from the Donbass to Brexit, from Trump 2016 to the election of Jair Bolsonaro. All of those red flags are present in the Alberta separatist campaign, including reports that the notorious Internet Research Agency of Russia is now involved. They played a pivotal role in Brexit and the Trump victory of 2016 and were subject to a major Justice Department investigation after it was too late. Is Canada naive enough to think things will be different this time? But the most serious threat to Canada is coming from the White House.
All right, I'm going to stop here because Mr. Angus was referring to a couple of things in that section that I want to bring to you. First of all, is a report that came out. There was a CBC investigation. This is by Eric Setso and Jordan Pearson and Christian Pass Lang that says here that Facebook is paying people overseas promoting Alberta separatism. That the CBC had uncovered 14 accounts from India, Pakistan, Indonesia, posting on popular Alberta separatist groups. It says here, you might think based on the volume of her Facebook posts that Nieta Aquila is an Albertan who supports separation. Quote, I signed the Alberta independence petition because Canada is not a great country anymore. An account in her name wrote in a popular Facebook group called Alberta Independence that promotes the movement and has more than 100,000 members. In another post, Aquila said she was harassed and had rocks thrown at her as she canvassed for petition signatures. It says here, the account's posts have generated thousands of reactions, comments, and shares in recent months as the issue heated up. But the account owner, according to CBC Visual Investigation, was posing as a Canadian and is actually a noodle merchant and content creator from Indonesia, who in some cases was just stealing content from real Albertans. When contacted by CBC, one Albertan whose content was stolen said they felt absolutely violated. Nieta Aquila even posted about income she generates from Meta's monetization program, which rewards creators for engagement and solicits subscribers on her personal page. Nieta Aquila is among 14 overseas accounts CBC identified in 4 popular Alberta independence face groups. The accounts have posted politically divisive content about Alberta separatism, Western annexation, and other hot-button Canadian topics within the past 2 months. Many of them, which Facebook indicates are run from Indonesia, Pakistan, India, the US, and Sri Lanka, are top contributors to Alberta focused pages, and have cumulatively garnered tens of thousands of reactions and comments and posts and cross-posts across more than a dozen Facebook groups. 2 users posted images of the money they make from Facebook. Multiple experts told CBC that the findings show how Facebook's incentives for creators can harm public discourse around important topics. Quote, this may not always be classic foreign interference in the state-backed sense. Sometimes it's much more banal. It's in some ways more depressing, said Matt Navarra, a social media consultant in the UK, whose clients have included Meta and Google. Quote, people sitting thousands of miles away working out that Canadian outrage is a profitable niche. I think they may not actually care about Canadian politics at all. Lock and load Albertans wrote one commenter on an image with the text, quote, Mark Carney can't block Alberta independence. As Alberta debates holding a referendum on whether the province should leave Canada, passion from real Albertans has been evident online, but so has cottage industry built around exploiting the topic. For example, a CBC Visual Investigation recently found that several YouTube channels with tens of millions of views that promoted U.S. annexation of Alberta were created by people living in the Netherlands to generate income from the platform. Experts say it appears that a similar economic model where monetization incentives content that is engaging rather than accurate or accountable has taken off on Facebook despite rules banning deceptive content. Quote, there are 2 beneficiaries of this. One is the grifters who are monetizing. They are engaged in this activity because it is financially profitable for them, said Angus Bridgman, director of the Media Ecosystem Observatory at McGill University in Montreal. The other is the platform itself, the ad revenue monetization around the attention that they are getting. Facebook groups focused on Alberta separatism are very active with hundreds of posts a day spread across the groups. In this mix are overseas content creators. In some cases, the accounts employ deception to appear Canadian. In one post, Nieta Aquila, who has racked up more than 2,000 reactions in the Alberta Independence group, claimed to have met people who were canvassing for independence in Calgary and expressed support. Not only did CBC find an identical post from a real Albertan made the day before, but photos posted by the Nieta Aquila account also revealed that she was in Indonesia that week. In fact, her profile reveals that she lives in the city of Palembang. CBC discovered that the person behind the account has multiple profiles under different names, including one that primarily advertises homemade noodles for sale. In one post, she claimed to have been harassed, saying that she had rocks thrown at her while canvassing for the independence movement. You are a Alberta patriot. Thank you for your service, one user commented. Using Google reverse image search, CBC found that the post was stolen from Edmonton resident Brock Ireland. Quote, I feel absolutely violated. If people are impersonating other people, that is wrong altogether, Ireland said when CBC informed him his post was copied. It really hurts to know that there are scammers out there that want to betray other people. Facebook has to do better. One screenshot of Nieta Aquila's meta monetization dashboard, which she posted, shows she made roughly $14 US in a month when she was active in Alberta Facebook groups. It's low-cost content production, said Renee Di Resta, an associate research professor at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Quote, it is something that allows them to earn some extra money, which really makes a difference in some parts of the world. The accounts did not respond to CBC's multiple requests for comment. Another Facebook account with the username Riri Sayer, which Facebook labeled as being run in Pakistan, posts content that is strongly pro-separatism and pro-federal government. Foreign interference or Albertans speaking for themselves, they wrote in a post in Alberta Separatism Facebook group. At the end of the day, Alberta's future should be decided by Albertans. That is a thing that is unfortunately a major issue with social media today, said Di Resta. What Meta is doing is it is incentivizing users to find issues that people believe in deeply, that people feel deeply aggrieved about, and to manipulate those audiences for profit. Meta has a responsibility to enforce its authenticity and monetization rules. As administrator for Alberta Independence, who goes by the online pseudonym Mr. Alberta, told CBC that 95% of accounts list Canada as their country of origin, but that they take the issue seriously and will continue monitoring and removing suspicious activity where identified. McGill's Media Ecosystem Observatory looked at these groups and the top posters for inauthentic activity. A preliminary analysis suggested inauthentic activity about separatism has tripled in recent months, but still only represented a fraction of the content in these groups. Quote, Canadians are getting tricked, said Bridgman. The big takeaway is these platforms continue not to do enough to ensure that there's fully authentic conversations. CBC uncovered several more accounts with links to Pakistan, including a number of pages that appear to be part of a coordinated network. The Legacy Archives, with close to 9,000 followers, says on its profile it's dedicated to history and philosophy, yet it frequently posts on Alberta separatist pages, often using highly emotional language. Separation is, quote, separation is in result of Liberal NDPs lying and attacking Western Canada, thinking Western Canada needs to be subservient to them, the Legacy Archives wrote on the Alberta Separatist Movement page. According to Facebook's page transparency feature, the Legacy Archives is managed from Pakistan and the US, along with several other accounts that frequently post in separatist groups and appear linked. CBC was able to link the Legacy Archives Trend Top, and History Addicted, which were also from Pakistan, with one page owner listed as being from the US because they are admins of a small Facebook group called Rise of Alberta. It's not clear who runs the pages. The Legacy Archives send in Facebook messages that they live in Canada, not Pakistan, but did not reveal their identity. I made this page for history, but no, I think we need our rights first, the user wrote. When asked why 4 other Pakistan-run accounts linked to the page were posted in Alberta separatist groups, the Legacy Archives did not respond and blocked the CBC journalist. Meta, in an email statement, said it had removed content that violated, quote, its policies on inauthentic behavior and disabled the accounts behind them. The Legacy Archives, Trend Top, and History Addicted are no longer online, in addition to Riri Sayer and 5 other accounts. Nieta Aquila's Facebook account is still active, however, her posts have been removed from the Alberta Independence group. And in addition to that, Russia did decide to enter the game formally. I mean, it always was there, but now that it's out in the open, this from the Canadian press, Moscow is calling Canada a warmonger for signing a drone production deal with Ukraine and is vowing to publish the address of a Canadian company working with Kyiv. Defense Minister David McGuinty said Canada will not be intimidated. 2 weeks ago, Ottawa announced a corporate partnership between Canadian and Ukrainian drone makers that could see drones made in Canada deployed to Ukraine's front line. The deal involves Ukrainian company Airlogics and Canadian drone maker Sentinel R&D, which is based in Hamilton, Ontario. At a press briefing Wednesday in Moscow, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said in Russian that she will be sharing the address of the Ontario company involved. She argued the deal allows Ukraine to hide vital military supplies in a third country and that Canada is not living up to its peacemaker rhetoric when it behaves, quote, like a warmonger. And then Canadians, once again, laughed in Canadian because what I said the other day about not accepting criticism from people from whom you would not accept advice and then considering the source. Come on. The Russia calling Canada warmonger is like the cauldron calling the teapot black. Russia's ambassador in Ottawa has said the drone deal means Canada is seeking to profit from the ongoing conflict, which Russia insists is not a war. It is. He and Zakharova both said Moscow is taking Canada's drone deal into account in Russia's military and political planning. Good. McGinty said military officials work to keep Canada safe and Ottawa will continue to support Ukraine. Quote, we would expect to see the Russians be critical because they don't appreciate the fact that NATO is coming together to assist a country that's in need, he told reporters on Parliament Hill. We're going to continue to monitor the situation, but we're going to continue in steadfast support of our Ukrainian colleagues. Canada has committed more than $25.5 billion in total assistance to Ukraine, including $8.5 billion in military assistance since the start of the full-scale invasion. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, and its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has caused a rapid evolution in drone technology, which now accounts for most of the casualties in the ongoing conflict. Ukraine has used drones to hit targets deep inside Russia territory and far beyond the war's front lines, but Russia has wielded drones of its own to strike inside of Ukraine as well. So with Russia not being happy that we're doing this, certainly everything that it does online, there's probably reason to suspect that it wouldn't decide to throw a few more dollars that initiative's way in order to make things more uncomfortable for us. Let's get back to Charlie Angus, who has stated that, of course, that the biggest threat is coming from the United States at the moment.
For this reason, I'm calling on Anton Bogman, the newly appointed Foreign Interference Transparency Commissioner, to launch an investigation into efforts by the Trump administration and other political actors to destabilize our country. Specifically, I am asking him to investigate allegations that there were a series of meetings held between top State Department officials and a small group of Alberta separatists. In February 2025, Donald Trump stated that the only way Canada could win concessions in trade negotiations was agree to give up our nation to MAGA. That same week, Prime Minister Trudeau told business leaders that Trump was serious in his determination to break our nation. And within days, a group calling themselves the Republican Party of Alberta, led by an ex-US Marine, filed papers with Elections Alberta to break up our country. They chose the name of the foreign political entity that is determined to destroy our nation. And within less than 2 months, a group of Alberta separatists were apparently invited for the first of a series of meetings with U.S. officials in Washington. Alberta separatist Dennis Modry is quoted as saying, "I met the senior U.S. administrative officials just a couple of steps from the president himself. When we walked into the conference room, the first comment was, quote, we recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation." Who arranged this meeting? Are we to believe that this marginal group could call up the White House and simply walk through the door? Were these meetings organized by the American Embassy in Ottawa or by the White House? Mr. Modry states that the first meeting was in a boardroom just a couple of steps from the president. So who represented President Trump in these meetings? Modry claimed that the offer of $500 million was put on the table. Which American officials made this financial offer? I share the concern of Premier David Eby, who said that what we're dealing with is treason. Treason and conspiracy. The Alberta separatists claim that discussions were held on propping up Alberta's currency, actually Canada's currency, in the event that Alberta tried to break away from Confederation. Who was authorized to make this offer? Was Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent or any of his staff part of these negotiations? Mr. Bessent has openly stated that the breakup of our nation is a priority of the Trump administration. I also want to raise the issue of the massive leak of personal information of every single voter in Alberta. It is essential that we determine who has been able to access that stolen data. Is there a connection between the Michigan-based 10 times vote apps, the separatists, and the stolen data? Is there any connection to Ambassador Pete Hoekstra, who has heavily promoted the 10-time vote app? We cannot treat the theft of voter data as simply a privacy breach. It must be investigated through the larger lens of foreign threat. Under Section 2 of the Act, the Commissioner has the full authority to investigate foreign interference in provincial referendums. Under the same section of the Act, he is obliged to investigate financial arrangements being offered by foreign powers. I have read the federal inquiry into the foreign interference study in 2024, and there's nothing in that evidence that comes close to the allegations of meeting with foreign officials and offers of money to break up our country. Imagine, if you will, say China or Iran, inviting Canadian citizens to top-level meetings in national capitals with a plan to break up our country. They'd be charged with treason. In the past, the Canadian government has expelled diplomatic staff from foreign embassies who interfered in our nation's interests. None of those countries ever openly discussed breaking up our country. Will there be any investigation into the role of the U.S. Embassy in potential political interference? And will there be consequences if those links are uncovered? The Commissioner has the power to summon witnesses and compel them to give oral or written evidence on oath of solemn affirmation. He has the power to compel documents. He must act. This is not about trusting in polling. This is not about a democratic debate. We're talking about an organized campaign of destabilization to undermine our nation at a time of unprecedented threat. I have three clear asks this morning. I call on Anton Bergman of the Foreign Influence Transparency Commission to launch an investigation into the role of foreign actors from the United States and other offshore actors in this attempt to destabilize Canada's domestic politics. Secondly, I urge Minister Anita Anand to call in Ambassador Pete Hoekstra and demand an explanation into his interference in our country's affairs. Are we to believe that he didn't know about offers of money being put on the table from the White House to break up our nation? And third, I call on the people of Canada to write to Commissioner Bergman and demand he take the threat of our sovereignty with the utmost gravity that this deserves. This is our country, and we are under threat as never before. Every Canadian has a stake in the outcome of this investigation. Our sovereignty is at stake here. We must take all efforts to preserve our democracy and our independence so that we can remain true as a nation rooted in democratic values, true, north, strong, and always free. Thank you very much.
You're asking for Anita Anand to meet with the U.S. ambassador. What exactly would be the raison d'etre for that kind of meeting? What's the paper trail or financial evidence that you've seen?
Well, we need to understand, first of all, Mr. Modry's comments about $500 million being put on a table in a meeting in Washington. Did that happen or did that not? If that happened, who made that offer? Secondly, with Mr. Pete Hoekstra, I think his statement that discussing our sovereignty would be good discussion is interference, and it's unacceptable interference, and he needs to explain himself.
Do you believe that, or have you seen evidence, however, of American money in Alberta or even Quebec's independence movements?
What we have seen is obviously now a rising number of offshore bots, fake sites, fake accounts. The report that the Internet Research Agency of Russia, that's as serious as it gets. These were the main players in Brexit. These were the main players in all of the European attempts to upend elections. So we already are seeing the foreign interference bots. But the allegations that money was offered, whether it's been put forward or not, remains a very serious concern, because it is that raises a clear question of what extent is the United States willing to go to break up our country.
Do you see any organic reasons as to why some people in Alberta feel this sentiment overall, besides the allegations of foreign interference? Do you say that there's any native-born Alberta independence movement that is worth considering?
I've spent a lot of time in Alberta. My wife's an Albertan. My father-in-law worked in the oil patch. I love the people of Alberta. What I really resent are people trying to break up our country and trying to divide each other from one another. That's what I resent. And I believe that the people of Alberta are not being allowed their voice. We've seen Daniel Smith ignore the Forever Canada petition that should have been heard, and it wasn't heard. So, but the issue of Albertans discussing amongst themselves is not the issue. The issue is destabilization from the outside. We cannot have a proper discussion if it's being destabilized and interfered with outside players.
But you agree that any discussion about taking a province out of confederation is going to break up the country, be it economically, socially, politically. The fabric of the country is based on the way it is today, mapped out. Quebec as well has probably almost the same, 35% of its population considering strongly the prospect of independence. What do you make of Quebec's sentiment, and do you feel the same way about Quebec as you do about Alberta?
The issue that I'm raising today is offshore interference. I have never seen the Parti Québécois been talking about taking American money to break up our country. But a small group of Alberta separatists are talking about breaking up our country and may have met with top officials in the White House. That is conspiracy. That is something that needs to be called out. And the fact that these two referendum calls were called out by the courts as not being credible shows to me that this is not a credible situation. This is about trying to break up our country at a most serious moment. So.
All right, and that's about the end of that there. You can see here, Kits and Cubs, that the person that went to attend there was only one person from one outlet asking several questions that Mr. Angus entertained. But as you can see, as the questions got further, that there was clearly an editorial slant or bent being pursued here, falsely claiming that the 35% or so support for separation in Quebec is the same thing in Alberta. We just saw public opinion polling from Ipsos that is indicating that on the questions Daniel Smith posed, only about 19% of Albertans support it. And if the question were outright, do you want to leave, it would be 18% support. And there's been some recent opinion polling in the province of Quebec on the issue of separation, which was brought to us online by the site Polling Canada. I'm just going to try and see if I can note. Oh, got some breaking news here that I'm going to have to bring to you that I just saw as well. Some evaluation of where it stands in the province of Quebec. And I'm just going to find this really quickly for you because I didn't thought it was going to come up, but it does here. So first of all, it was by a group called Synopsis that shows that Quebec provincial polling, the PQ is at 31%, the Parti libéral du Québec is at 26%, the CAQ is at 21%. That's a big rebound from them because they were way below 10 at the worst with, I was going to say Philippe Couillard with that's a premiere a while ago, with François Legault and the Quebec Conservative Party, Parti conservateur du Québec, 12%, and Québec solidaire, the party that Alexandre Boulris left to go run for, at 11%. But also, see here that the Parti Québécois apparently is taking a stance against the high-speed rail project and claiming that it wants the money that Canada would spend on the Quebec portion to go to Quebec as an opt-out thing. It doesn't work that way. The opt-out clause was for programs, not specific projects. So it's a ridiculous comment, and it might turn a lot of people off as well in the province of Quebec. But they asked about independence, and this is Synopsis as well. And right now it says it's 71% Remain, 29% independence. So, with the numbers, the polling numbers, the Parti Québécois is still projected, according to them, to get a slight majority. But again, with the CAQ doing much better, at some point that is going to cut into the Parti Québécois vote. So that news came out also on the issue of Alberta separating. There was a poll that I mentioned to you from Ipsos where it was stating that both people who would vote for separation and people who would vote to remain equally feel they both feel that Danielle Smith is not advocating for their side. So she's basically pissing off everyone. And this poll is indicating that the UCP would get 48% if there was an election today, the NDP 45 if an election was held today. But given that the NDP is actually stronger in the cities than in the rural areas, where the UCP is rather strong and has superfluous vote, which is like the same issue that the Conservatives have across Canada. They get a lot of votes. They got a record number of votes, but because so much of them were concentrated in Alberta and Saskatchewan in particular, every vote that's one more than the one that you need to vote is superfluous vote. It doesn't add any more seats to your column. And so given that vote is that way in Alberta for the UCP, even though it's 48 to 45 in terms of the polling numbers for the UCP, what that translates into seats comes to the benefit of the NDP here, according to the people at Polling Canada who mapped out the results. And here it's showing that the NDP would pick up 46 seats and the UCP would pick up 41 based on those numbers. So Danielle Smith, according to some polls, has negotiated herself into an electoral losing position at the moment. No wonder she wants to gerrymander a couple seats. Yes, and of course, skillfully done, Charlie. The reporter should feel embarrassed that this is not Charlie's first rodeo. Yes, indeed. And you will notice that Charlie Angus very skillfully bringing back says, but the subject here is foreign interference. Right. So this loaded question that I'm asking you to see if you view Quebec separatism differently than Alberta, so that I go, aha, special thing for Quebec again, which again, Quebec is an actual culture nation, by the way. Charlie Angus, deftly handling that question and moving it away from the gotcha terrain that the journalist that was there was trying to bring it. So that's what I have for that little bit. The next thing I want to talk to you about, Kits and Cubs, is an editorial public comment piece that I saw that really resonated with me when I read it. I thought it was a really excellent because there are certain things that I keep on saying, right? I say that we're a nonpartisan channel. Fortunately, unfortunately, we have been tending to agree with the Liberal Party position federally a lot, mainly because the other parties had been taking themselves out of contention by not being particularly serious. The NDP under Jagmeet Singh was not a serious option. The Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre, not particularly a serious option. However, with Avi Lewis coming to take over the NDP, there is a little bit more of a serious option there. And when Avi Lewis came up on surveillance pricing, he definitely had something there. And as evidenced, the federal government believed it as well, because in their online crimes bill, I think, or anyway, I can't remember I think it's online harms bill. I'd have to look at that specifically to remember the name of the bill. They are going to include some things on surveillance pricing because it resonated with Canadians. And there was another issue, can't remember it off the top of my head, that Avi Lewis brought up, I guess, as a second issue, that actually, again, is a sound one. One that makes sense, one not some flight of fancy, not some weird thing, but something that there's actually a cause for and that you can make a good case. So he's drawing some contrast with Pierre Poilievre as being showing how opposition actually should be done, which I found very, very interesting. But on the show, I often say, right, the only people, conservatives, large C, the people in the political operatives and in the machinery, the only people they hate more than liberals, capital L, or lefties, small l, are each other. Right? I say that often. This here, what I'm going to read to you, is some excellent commentary from someone who sits on the political spectrum at a different spot than we do. They self-identify as being conservative, as in political ideology, small c, but not necessarily party affiliation, at least not at the moment. And yet, we could have pretty much written the same damn thing almost word for word. So, when I say that the current iteration of the Canadian conservative movement is not particularly small c, conservative, anymore, but rather libertarian authoritarian, which is kind of an oxymoron, but libertarian authoritarian performative on top of that, and that genuine conservative voters don't have a party of their own anymore. What this commentator has to say here encapsulates this beautifully, as far as I can say. And when I say that there are many good conservatives who are our neighbors, our friends, our fellow citizens, whose voices that we need to ensure that we go forward in a balanced manner, because on certain files, there's some things for which you want a more progressive view, like, for example, inclusivity and equity, making sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And there are certain things that, where you probably want more of a conservative voice. Traditional conservative voice, a bit of the hold back and let's be cautious and let's strengthen some institutions. Let's make sure that things are all right there. Like, for example, if we are going to be making an economic shift like Mark Carney is, to ensure that it actually is founded on solid economic principles. If you were an actual genuine small c conservative, you'd probably want a little bit of a conservative there to help, and both voices together, create a little bit of balance, and we get a little bit of the best of both worlds, and we get to cover more bases by putting them together, so we're less prone to making some errors or missing our blind spots, right? If we work together. This commentator is that type of person, from what I can gather. So it's well written, it's well argued, it's full of clarity. Again, I do not necessarily buy into every concept that's in there, but overall, it was just really refreshing to hear a voice from that side of the spectrum that makes cogent and coherent arguments that are consistent with observable reality, using sound logic rather than logical fallacies or rhetorical tricks to deliver an actually thoughtful and constructive comment. And we need more people like this to stand up and make their voices heard within the conservative community. And when they do, even though we don't necessarily agree on everything, we do need to stand up for them and with them, because the current Canadian conservative movement, large C, will rush in to dehumanize, demonize, and diminish them as impure, not real conservatives. And because they are our fellow citizens, it's our responsibility to not allow that to take place. Their party left them. So we need to be caring and welcoming, because we have much more in common than the polarizers and the extreme consensus advocates need you to believe that we do for what they are trying to do to work. So I'm going to read it, and I'm also going to include the link for you if you would like to follow along or read it again on your own time, because, again, we need more voices like this from that side of the spectrum. All right. The piece is by Linda T. That's the name she goes by. It says, the CPC can't figure out how to beat the Liberals, so now they're beating up Conservatives instead. The CPC has found its newest replacement for a strategy: punishment. Not of the Liberals, because they can't seem to lay a glove on them, not of Carney, because he barely seems to notice them, not of the people who actually designed, defended, or sold the campaign that lost. No, the punishment is being aimed at other Conservatives. Doug Ford, Corey Teneycke, Dimitri Soudis, Fred Delory, and Caroline Elliott are being put through the grinder because CPC still won't do the one thing that every serious party has to do after a loss: look at the leader, look at the circle around them, admit what failed, and change. I've written fairly extensively on where we find ourselves as a conservative movement, and when I say we, I do mean we. Full disclosure, despite the constant name-calling I've been subjected to since I started writing about the CBC's amazing streak of losses, I vote Conservative. Prior to this loss, I donated significantly to the federal Conservatives. I also vote Conservative provincially, donate generously, and have given a ton of my time during elections. The party doesn't owe me anything for that. It was my choice. But I'm a Conservative, despite what the newly minted influencers say, and I'll remain one if the party gets its act together. So far, it shows no sign of doing so. I'm not going to relitigate everything I've already said in other pieces, but to be brief, Poilievre needed to show humility after the loss. He needed to learn some hard lessons about how and why the Liberals came out ahead. Instead, he doubled down on the idea that he was somehow the real election winner, even as MPs started crossing the floor. He had an opportunity at that point to adjust, stem the tide, and keep the Liberals to a minority. He chose not to. Now they're in majority territory. Carney's approvals have soared and Poilievre's have sunk. My last piece on this ongoing saga outlined the CPC's surprising new argument, which is that its losses are apparently now the reason it's owed a win. Instead of coming up with a plan to actually win, the party has started treating defeat as a kind of political layaway program. We lost, therefore we're due. We failed, therefore destiny owes us a correction. Every defeat is being reframed as one more step towards some inevitable victory that never seems to arrive. It feels like each time people point out to the CPC how wildly sad this is getting and how their numbers keep tanking because of it, they somehow manage to get even more unserious. Instead of taking stock, accepting the loss, taking responsibility for the floor crossings, and stopping this endless discussion about how to shapeshift their way into an eventual win, they say, no thanks. No reflection, no humility, no course correction. Just another round of performative politics for a base that's being told the problem is everyone except the people actually in charge. And here we are. From loss to floor crossers to we'll win because we lost to we're going to destroy Corey tonight. For the love of God, how many more ways can they find to make this worse? Everyone is quietly wondering now what's next, because it's clear no one is actually going to turn this around. What is the next pointless, destructive move the CPC will make because it can't beat the Liberals and feels it like it needs to do something? The news cycle over the past couple of weeks felt like it might tilt, even a little, in the CPC's favor. We all heard about Carney shouting at his caucus, and in my opinion, this was a perfect opinion for the CPC to point out that many in the Liberal caucus are such hopeless idiots that even Carney, their own leader, has to shout at them. A little aside here, this was an article that was written by Althea Raj, who seems to have had a bone to pick with Mark Carney pretty much since the get-go. She doesn't really seem to like him. People say, well, he yells. Okay. That's not great, clearly. But Mark Carney does have a reputation for not suffering fools and being prepared and wanting people to come with some solutions, not just problems. There are probably a lot of people who are maybe flexible, blue liberals, red conservatives, are probably not that mad that Mark Carney would yell at a few liberals, particularly ones that they maybe didn't care for that much under Justin Trudeau. That might not necessarily be a point that can be exploited. It might actually be a selling point rather than a bug for certain audiences. But it would be a much smarter play than what they are doing now by any objective measure. So again, we all heard about Carney shouting at his caucus, and in my opinion, this was a perfect opening for the CPC to point out that many in the Liberal caucus are such hopeless idiots that even Carney, their own leader, has to shout at them. That was the attack. That was the angle. It was an opening to hit the Liberal Party as an institution. Unfortunately, my editorial addition here is that, unfortunately, there are plenty more hopeless idiots within the CPC at the moment. So it's kind of hard to accuse the other party of being a party of hopeless idiots when yours is even more so, and still be credible. Just saying. Unfortunately, the CPC decided to go the other route. Instead of making the story about Liberal dysfunction, they made it about media unfairness. Quote, see how unfair the media is? They never keep the MPs' names quiet. If it was Poilievre doing the shouting, maybe that satisfies the already converted, but it doesn't move the story forward. It doesn't hurt the Liberals. It doesn't make Canadians feel like Conservatives are serious. It just makes the CPC look again like a party more interested in complaining about the refs than winning the game. Then, after blowing that, the story started circulating that Canada could be headed for a recession. Nothing definite and not full panic yet, but it was still a good time to put the focus on the Liberal government and ask ministers what specifically is being done to help Canadians with the cost of living, other than another taxpayer-funded rebate. Again, little aside, probably wouldn't be very convincing from Pierre Poilievre, the man that went up to a mic during COVID and said, "We're conservatives. We don't believe in social programs or in costly social programs." When you have a leader that just basically said, "Well, we don't really care about the cost of living or making things really more affordable unless it's lowering the price of gas." Out of Pierre's mouth, this wouldn't work. But again, there was an opportunity there. One that the NDP, again, with surveillance pricing and other type of stuff, is explaining, and the Conservatives are just leaving behind, which may explain why the polling is indicating that the NDP is actually clawing back some of the vote and some of the seats that Conservatives took from them in the last federal election. So, again, then after blowing that, the story started circulating that Canada could be headed for a recession. Nothing definite and not full panic yet, but it was still a good time to put the focus on the Liberal government and ask ministers what specifically is being done to help Canadians with the cost of living, other than another taxpayer-funded rebate. When will the cuts to the TFW, Temporary Foreign Worker Program, show results? What's the housing plan? What's the plan for jobs, productivity, investments, and affordability? These are real questions. They matter to real people, and they were sitting right there waiting to be asked. Now, again, being on a different side of the political spectrum, I believe that a lot of these questions have already been asked. When will the cuts to the TFW program show results? They already are. Because again, using that GDP per capita narrative that we kept laughing about when the Conservatives were using it, because we had a huge influx of people in a short amount of time, and therefore, of course, GDP per capita went down. Well, now that we have negative population growth, as I told you, GDP per capita would go up. Well, it has. Not a peep from Pierre on that. Mark Carney is somehow not responsible for GDP per capita going up. In fact, Conservatives don't mention it anymore. Because, as expected, when you have slight GDP growth, but lower population or negative population growth, your GDP per capita is going to grow. Because that's how fractions work. Oh my God. What's the housing plan? We know what the housing plan is. Right? And there's legislation to get Build Canada homes off the ground and up and started for, in earnest, which is waiting to pass, hopefully, the House of Commons and the legislature. What's the plan for jobs, productivity, investment, and affordability? Well, Mark Carney's been talking about nothing but that since he became leader of the party. So the questions are waiting there to be asked, but it's not like they haven't been answered as well. Back to the piece. Instead, the CPC decided to double down on the argument that Carney is a terrible economist compared to Poilievre because that's gone over so well in the past. Then they put out an AI video, Spencer Pratt style, mocking the term, quote, technical recession after Carney used it. Within a few days, jobs numbers came out showing Canada was not in recession and had added 88,000 jobs, or 154,000 full-time jobs. So a moment that could have focused on what's actually wrong in Canadians' lives was instead turned into another cheap online hit against Carney, another attempt to make Poilievre feel better, and another performance for the base. And then it backfired. That's the problem. The CPC keeps confusing online catharsis with political strategy. It keeps treating a good dunk as if it's the same thing as a good argument. It keeps acting as if the goal is to make the most loyal people feel vindicated for 5 minutes instead of persuading people who aren't already in the tent. So where does that leave us? Soul searching? Serious meetings about what the hell is wrong with the party and how it can be fixed? Of course not. CPC operatives and influencers and even one MP have picked a public fight with Doug Ford, Corey Tenike, Dimitri Soudis, Fred Delory, and Caroline Elliott instead. Because if the CPC can't beat Liberals, it can definitely beat other Conservatives. Jamil Javani came out with a post on X after the BC leadership contest letting everyone know that it wasn't Caroline Elliott who lost, it was actually Doug Ford. This despite the fact that Poilievre was pictured with Caroline Elliott during the leadership race where they discussed all the things they had in common. Jamil Javani is saying that Doug Ford is the one that lost because Corey Tenike, his campaign manager, went over there to manage Caroline Elliott's campaign and didn't get the win. So it's a loss on Doug Ford, if you can follow that mental gymnastics. And despite the fact that Elliott's career as a Conservative politician in BC is far from over, a CPC MP decided to torch any goodwill anyway, because why not? Why preserve relationships when you can burn them down for applesauce from people who already agree with you? It's reminding me of a quote from The Devil Wears Prada 2. May the bridges that I burn light my way. Conservative influencers like Misinformation Mario Zelaya, misinformation was my editorial addition to the text, are posting on X about, quote, rooting out the traitors in the CPC. Carrie Lynn Findlay, the leader of the BC Conservative Party, is also saying that, which may explain why it is that Caroline Elliott might be making a move to another party, and why it is that Amelia Boultby, who is now sitting as an independent, indicated that she will not be running again, because Amelia Boultby is definitely a conservative, but doesn't believe in all the gay bashing things. So there's clearly no home for her and the BC Conservatives, since they're going to go full bore anti-trans, right? And by traitors, they mean anyone who says anything negative about Pierre Poilievre. Corey Teneycke is now saying negative things about Poilievre because Poilievre's MPs and supporters have gone after him and Ford for 2 weeks. Of course he's going to hit back. How Fred Delory got thrown into this, I'm not entirely sure. Dimitri Soudas seems odd too, but here we are. And actually, Dimitri Soudas actually saw this editorial and actually liked it. Can CPC influencers chase Ford, Delory, Soudas, and Teneycke out of the conservative movement? I doubt it. They can certainly cause problems, which seems to be the point, but what exactly do they hope to achieve? The next Ontario election isn't until 2030. Do they think Ford is going to step down? Obviously, he won't. He has a majority. Unless he gets a little sensitive by all the negative press and doesn't like it anymore. And says, you know what? I don't like this anymore. I'm going to take my marbles and go home. You don't appreciate me enough. I've had enough. Which I could actually see Doug Ford doing because he's a big old Suki baby. But he has a majority. Do they think Delory will stop going on CBC, Power and Politics? Of course he won't. He's part of the panel, and the audience for it isn't sitting on X waiting for CPC influencers to tell them who the real conservatives are. Soudas is the same. He's a private citizen now, a successful one, and despite political missteps, he was successful in politics too. He doesn't care what people on X say about him. So none of this achieves anything real. It doesn't hurt the Liberals. It doesn't broaden the Conservative coalition. It doesn't make Poilievre look stronger. It doesn't make the CPC look more serious. It just gives the base another look over here target, another person to blame for Poilievre's problems, and another internal fight to distract from the fact that the party still has no clear plan to win. That's what this really is about. The CPC can't admit the problem is the strategy, the leader, the tone, the campaign, the message, and the refusal to learn from defeat. So instead, it now has to find traitors. It has to find saboteurs. It has to find establishment conservatives, red Tories, Ford people, media panelists, consultants, former staffers, or anyone else who can be blamed for the fact that Carney is rising and Poilievre is sinking. I would actually say drowning. It's not strength. It's a party punching sideways because it can't punch up. It's a movement so terrified of admitting failure that it would rather start a civil war than have an honest conversation. And the saddest part is that none of the people being attacked are the ones keeping Poilievre from winning. Doug Ford isn't stopping the CPC from presenting a serious economic message. Corey Teneycke isn't stopping the CPC from sounding normal to voters outside the base. Fred Delory isn't stopping the CPC from learning why it lost. Dimitri Soudas isn't stopping the party from course correcting. Caroline Elliott isn't the reason the Liberals are climbing. The CPC is doing that to itself. Until the party is willing to face that, this is what we're going to keep getting. Not a strategy, not a reset, not a serious opposition movement ready to govern. Just another round of internal enemies, another purge fantasy, another explanation for why the leader is never responsible, and another performance designed to make the base feel like someone, somewhere, is finally being punished. But the Liberals aren't being punished. The country isn't being punished. The CPC is just punching itself in the face and calling it a fight. I think that this is a great article. Solid. A lot of this stuff is stuff that I've been saying. It's just so nice. So nice to be hearing someone else say it as well. Let me see if I can bring this up on my phone as well, because on my phone, I believe I was able to see some of the comments, which are not appearing on my uh, desktop for some reason. Uh, let's see if I can find it here very quickly. Nope, not quickly at all. There we go. Maybe this is the one, because I would like to show you how other people have reacted to this as well. I'm going to guess that, given that she self-identifies as conservative, that most people that were commenting on what she had to say are also of conservative mind. Um, Your points on CPC comms are dead accurate. They keep missing the obvious political points. As to Corey and the gang, get over it. It was a bonehead move to bring the gang out from TO to show the rubes in BC how it's done. The pros from Dover literally cost Elliott the leadership by their mere presence. That was more than enough to take the shine off Elliott. Elliott herself seems a rather nice, genuine person who's entrapped in the idea that to win you have to cling to the center. Even when she tried to chase the anti-Drippa, anti-Soji base, her sincerity fell off a cliff. She sounded like a BC Liberal and lost as one. The siren call of the middle of the road, avoiding the ick of actual conservatives, has not worked federally for 4 elections and failed Elliott for the leadership. So again, right, you can see even in this comment, there is, she wasn't pure enough. You can see that, right? That tinge in there. To which she responds, I agree with some of your points, others not so much. All that to say, love your perspective, and you always make me think. The NDP angle, I'm not so sure, but could be wrong. We should do a space sometime and hash it out. Another person named Alexis. Let us not forget that Polyev was very proud to say he hasn't changed his mind about anything since he was 14 years old. That is not normal, by the way. I would hazard a guess that that's exactly what's going on in the CPC right now. He says this is the way things are, and therefore that is the way things are, and no one's going to be able to make him realize or see that the direction he's going on is only down. Dimitri Sudas mentioned in it, quote, can CPC influencers chase Ford, Delori, Sudas, and Tanaik out of the conservative movement? I doubt it. Dimitri responded, not happening. So these are conservative voices that we need. Again, they will try to frame things. Mark Carney hasn't presented his plan for the economy or anything yet. He has, right? But that is definitely, or he hasn't said enough about it. Because that's definitely a more constructive, reasonable line of attack than Mark Carney is badly educated in economics. It just doesn't make sense. Hopefully, I'm going to reach out to this person and hope that they would agree to come on a show like ours and be a guest. As you know, we've had conservatives on the show before. Not many of them, because we don't like to platform people who are of bad faith. But when we find good faith conservatives, again, who have no political home, really, we do like to have them on, because, again, neighbors, fellow citizens, colleagues, people we care about, we want the best for them too, right? So if we can have more discussions like that, find out who these people are, and to have more discussions, maybe that's the best thing that we can do to try to eliminate this performative, authoritarian, libertarian thing that's masquerading these days as conservative, that is helping nobody but the operatives of the party through extreme fundraising, clicks, social media stardom, but not contributing anything that makes anyone's life better, not putting any food on your table, not helping you find a job, not helping you find a doctor, not making sure that your kids get properly educated, right? Not there for you when there are climate disasters that lead to emergencies, not willing to be there to support you in time of need, even though you've paid your taxes and you expect your government to be there to take care of you as a person. Willing to have an AI data center somewhere in your backyard, right? Just not caring about you. we need these voices as well. All right. Final thing I wanted to chat with you about today, Kits Cups. I hope you liked that piece because, like I said, it really did resonate with me. Made me think as well. So I like that very much. There was the fourth thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm going to have to go and look at the episode description to see what it is because I don't remember it off the top of my head. Oh, yes. Finally, the federal government is considering following Manitoba's lead on social media access for citizens under the age of 16. Yes, very important. And I will bring up the article on that because I think this is a move that a lot of us probably appreciate. This is according to Catherine Tunney. It says here, the federal government is moving to restrict young Canadians' access to social media unless those companies can show they've made their platform safe. Culture Minister Mark Miller introduced his long-awaited online harms bill in the House of Commons on Wednesday, which also puts in some controls around artificial intelligence chatbots as a result of what happened in Tumbler Ridge. Quote, we're failing our children. Enough is enough, Miller said. We need basic protection in place so every child in this country can be safe on platforms they use every day. The rest of us would like that too, by the way, just saying. Bill C-34, the Safe Social Media Act, would force social media services defined as traditional social media platforms, live streaming services, and adult content services focused on user-shared content to restrict accounts for children under 16 years old. However, services could seek an exemption if they implement what officials briefing reporters called adequate safeguards to protect children. The exemption wouldn't apply to platforms offering adult content services. The exemption will be based on criteria to be determined later through regulations, said officials. It remains unclear when the ban would come into effect and how long it would take for exemptions to be granted. Officials estimate it could take 18 months to set up the regulator after the bill becomes law. They did say the under 16 ban could be set up after regulations are issued, but before the watchdog is fully set up and running, raising questions about the rollout. The bill doesn't lay out how the platforms will need to verify users are not younger than 16. Miller told reporters there will be, quote, back and forth with the platforms as to what protects people's privacy and what is adequate and sufficient in the circumstances. The bill, which has to be passed by Parliament before becoming law, also sets out criteria for AI chatbots, public-facing services that can mimic human relationships, including the obligation to reduce the risk of harmful content being generated by their services. AI chatbots will need measures to respond when a user expresses ideas of suicide or self-harm or an intention to commit an act that could cause death or serious bodily harm to an individual, said officials. The bill would not require the companies behind the chatbots to report those interactions to police. Again, why not? Asked why there is no age restriction on chatbots, Miller called those platforms part of a, quote, an evolving playing field that can be, quote, very damaging towards kids, but can also be educational tools. Quote, we're going to have to keep a close eye on it. It did not feel appropriate to impose a minimum age restriction at this time, he said. The government proposes setting up a digital safety commission to make sure companies abide. Once set up, it would be responsible for enforcing the act, developing regulations and guidance, assessing compliance, and managing complaints. Social media platforms will have to quickly remove two categories of content that sexually victimizes a child or re-victimizes a survivor, and non-consensual intimate images. Those companies will also have to, quote, apply labels to synthetically generated content, the government said in a press release. Quote, while laws exist to respond once harm has happened, there's currently very little that requires online services to prevent harm in the first place. According to the bill, the maximum penalty for violation would either be a $10 million or 3% of the company's gross global revenue, whichever is greater. Companies could face multiple penalties for repeated violations. I like that. The federal government has been signaling some kind of ban for children and young teens for months. Ottawa, like governments around the world, is under pressure from parents and advocates to address social media's addictive features and limit access to predatory and sometimes dangerous content. Psychologists have been warning that design features like infinite scroll are impacting teens' self-esteem and mental health. The Canadian government has also faced calls to regulate AI chatbots following the Tumbler Ridge, BC mass shooting earlier this year. In the wake of the tragedy, it emerged that OpenAI did not share internal warnings with law enforcement about messages sent to its chatbot, the immensely popular ChatGPT, by the shooter. Carol Todd has been waiting for action for more than a decade. Her daughter Amanda, trigger warning, of course, here, killed herself in 2012, just 1 month after posting a video online detailing the cyberbullying and extortion she had been living with for 2 years. Since then, she's been advocating for online harms legislation. Quote, "It's sad that it took so long, but I'm glad that something is in place for the future," she told CBC News. Quote, "We don't want to hear any more tragic stories. Amanda's was one of the first explosive stories in Canada, and her story just keeps floating up to the forefront with all of this. But I swear my daughter just keeps watching us from somewhere and prodding and poking at us." Australia became the first country late last year to set a minimum age to possess an account on TikTok, YouTube, and Meta's Instagram and Facebook. However, kids have been reportedly able to get around the restrictions. Canadian officials told reporters they are learning from Australia and other jurisdictions, stressing there's no system that is 100% effective. "We wouldn't have courts if laws were perfect and everyone observed them. That's the reality," said Miller. "That is why it was so key to have commission to interact with industry and able to give some teeth to this law so that we didn't just hope and pray that this would be enforced." Michael Geist, the University of Ottawa's Canada Research Chair in Internet and E-commerce Law, called it an enormously problematic policy. Quote, "There are real concerns about the privacy implications of this for all Canadians because it's not just kids that are going to be forced to provide some sort of age verification," he said. "That's a very risky approach and one in which the government doesn't even have the details yet about how that system would actually function." Meta, whose platforms will almost certainly be covered by age restrictions, called social media bans counterproductive, but said it's encouraged that the government, quote, "appears to recognize that online services that provide teens with sufficient safeguards can be valuable." The tech giant behind Facebook and Instagram argued age verification should be left up to the app stores rather than the developers of the individual apps. A previous attempt to pass an online harms bill was marked by controversy and died when former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau prorogued Parliament in early 2025. That bill included Criminal Code and Canadian Human Rights Act amendments that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre said would chill free speech. Conservatives have said they want to review the new bill before commenting. So there you go, kids and cubs. That is the news on that portion. The little bit of news that I said that came in and that I need to report upon, it looks like we're going to have another leadership campaign. It would seem that the Green Party of Canada will choose its new leader in November to replace longtime leader Elizabeth May. The list of approved candidates will be announced on August 5th, and voting will use ranked ballots from November 2nd to 13th, with results announced on November 14th. It is widely suspected that Mike Morris, who used to be the MP for Guelph and had lost in the last election by the slimmest of margins, but who has remained with the company, might be the forerunner to take over. Based on what I know of him, he's an extremely good constituency MP, and people have a lot of respect for him. He could definitely bring the movement forward. So that is that's hopefully he does enter, and there'll be some exciting exciting to see what the Greens do next, especially since it seems to be gaining again some of the vote share that it had lost in the last election. If I remember correctly, if I go to 338canada.com and take a look here, what it says. Yeah, the Greens at the election were barely at 1%, if that, and have climbed up to 3 since then, which is a small climb, of course, but it is a bit of a gain. Seat projections are showing that they would get 2 seats, that Mike Morris would get his seat back if an election were held today. But there are other polling companies like Nanos that shows that the Greens are actually pulling in 6 again. So, like I said, there could be some opportunities for Greens to start growing again and move beyond its initial state. Well, not initial state, because I mean, it was about a 35-year-old party before Elizabeth May came along already. But take the next step in becoming a more solid mainstream party, because it was well on its way around the time that they brought Annamie Paul in to be the leader. And then that leadership choice ended up being a disaster for the party. And Miss May had to come back and help rebuild it and put it more on some stable ground and give it some credibility again. But now that Mr. Morris most likely will be, there is definitely a proven candidate that has already had a seat in Parliament and can then work to bring the party to the next phase of its evolution and might become more of a player. So there you go, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Sharing is caring. Share the content. Please, please, please help us with the algorithm and leave a little bit a note from you about why it is that it resonated with you, because that more likely is to get someone to click on it. And we thank you for your help with that. Here you go, kids and cubs. A little QR code for you here that will bring you to our YouTube page. If you scan that, please smash with our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. And if you are listening to this fewer than 7 days after it airs on your mobile, if you go to the comment section and swipe left, you will see that you have the opportunity to offer us some hype points, which offers smaller channels like us the opportunity to have more visibility. So please click on that, and you can do that 3 times per week. If you would like to help us other ways, say financially, because we do incur some costs to bring this show to you, we would be grateful for your assistance via an enthusiastic expression of encouragement by scanning this QR code, which will bring you to our coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And there you can buy me a cup of hot chocolate if you would like, or Mr. Grizzly, a cup of hot coffee. We have one-time and recurring donation setups, and that you can stop anytime that you want, so that you are not locked in like for a full year or something like that. If you would like to offer us a little more stability, we would appreciate any amount. Every nickel helps. So thank you for all that you do, those who are able to contribute that way. If you are on YouTube, you can also contribute via super chats, stickers, and memberships. We get about 70% of your donation there. We get 95 to 97% with coffee. And if you would like to make a donation where we get 100% of it and not to give any money to US tech companies like Meta and Google and all of that, a direct bank transfer from your bank to ours via our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, will do the trick. And Kit Elaine, if you are listening, our account with Acast is now finally and fully set up. So I am ready to send the first episodes to Albert, I believe you said his name is. I'm hoping I remember that correctly, so that he can help us get our podcasts up and running again. I'll look back in our feeds, because I know you sent me the appropriate email address. If you want to send it to me again to make it easier to find, that would be very helpful. But I think we are ready and on our way to have a podcast presence again. It's been a lot of work finding someone to talk to that could give us control of our account back, but we do have it and we are ready to go. So hopefully this will be a new era for us again, that we can rebuild our podcast listenership and keep growing in other ways, because again, the throttling that we are seeing from X and YouTube has made it a little more difficult, but they don't control the podcast portion of it at all. And as if we can get the word out there through that way, maybe we can build our base again and again put ourselves on a better footing, not only in terms of listeners, but also financially as well. So we're ready to go. Good news. Woohoo. All right. Let's see, what else do we have? Because democracy is something that you do, we already showed you a couple of those petitions. The one we haven't shown you yet is ourcommons.ca petition E7395, sponsored by Elizabeth May, who we were just talking about, which calls upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway. There you go. Also, Charlie Angus, because what he was talking about, wanting you to write to the commissioner for an interference, you would write to Public Safety Canada at 269 Laurier Avenue West. Laurier is Laurier, Ottawa, Ontario, and the postal code is K1A OP8, or you can call, if you would rather do that, at 830-3118. And Elaine, I just saw your thing come in. Thank you very much. I'm going to try to type that out onto the chat when I ask you to do the cock-a-doodle-doo thing, so that it will be there for you to jot down as well. Words of wisdom. Sleep is very restorative. If you have the opportunity, get some. If you have the opportunity to take a nap at some point, get some. Especially if your sleep has been a little disturbed lately. I cannot believe how much better I feel today compared to yesterday. Even though there's no way my cold is gone by now, as you can start hearing my voice, my nose is starting to clog up again. The decongestant is starting to run out. So there you go. Thank you, Kit Elaine. I saw it come in. Thank you. There we go. Kat goes, remember, yes, do remember Bill Kelly live tonight. Last week was on Wednesday, but normally he does his live shows on a Thursday. I should try to get him on your show. We did have him once, if you look in our interview project archives, but we would love to have him back. It was a wonderful discussion because for the first half of the show, he ended up interviewing me more than me him. So we definitely nice, lovely. He's a lovely, lovely, lovely man for whom I have an enormous amount of respect. And talking about that, people who are lovely for whom I have an enormous amount of respect, Laura Babcock. I will be doing an O-show hit with her tomorrow. So watch for that, Kits and Cubs. You're going to have some bonus Beaver, but somewhere else on another channel. And somebody sent me a suggestion to work on collaborations. I think it might have been Kit Uncover. So I'm going to propose that to Laura and see if try that on this venue with that to see if it works. Because that would be a very good way to cross promote. I didn't know it was possible. So you've taught me something. So thank you very much. Let's see. What else? Cat goes, really? I missed that one. Yeah. Well, we did it recently. If you go to our page, there's a place where you there are playlists, I think, and I think we have an interview project playlist that will help you to find it much more easily than sifting through all of the content to find it. But I believe it was sometime in the fall of last year, if I'm not mistaken, if memory serves. So please, yes, do go check out that. He's delightful, just absolutely delightful. So yeah, all of that going on. So there, Kids and Cubs. It could be a tough world out there. Please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And now, may I please have a very celebratory and a little bit of get well. Continue to get well, Mr. Beaver. Cock-a-doodle-doo at the count of 3. Oh, well, actually not cock-a-doodle-doo. Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. Actually, on 1, 2, 3. Oh, yeah. That's the good stuff right there. I cannot deny you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Kits and Cubs. I have some news about some Canadians who make us proud, but a little sad news. Victoria Mboko, who was playing with Serena Williams in doubles, they did win their first doubles match and beating the number 3 team there and one of the best teams in the world right in their first match together. But in her singles match yesterday, Mboko injured her knee, it would appear, and had to pull out of the rest of the tournament, which is so frustrating. And people are wondering if she might, if she'll be better in time for Wimbledon. Hopefully that is the case. But her opportunity to play doubles with Serena ended at one match. I just cannot imagine what that must be like, getting that great honor and great excitement, that great call, and then having your body fail you a little bit that way. Actually, I can't imagine what it is like, because that's what happened to my dance career, actually, when my knees gave out. But yeah, that will definitely that definitely hits a little hard, unfortunately. In other news about Canadians who make us proud, briefly here, because we've had a lot of success over the last little bit. And one of the things that I want to mention is we have in a sport we don't talk about a lot, BMX racing, but Molly Simpson kicked off the UCI BMX Racing World Cup season in style, reaching the podium twice in Sarians, France. She won Saturday's season opener, edging out Denmark's Malene Keistrup and Australia's Saya Sakakibara in a tight women's final. And that track was the site of her first World Cup victory last year. And then she followed that up, finishing second to Sakakibara the following day. So a gold and a silver for her at that one, which is really interesting. And from the world of badminton, which we also don't talk about often, but we have talked about this gentleman, a young man named Victor Lai, who finished third at the World Championships last year, winning Canada's first ever medal at the World Championships in badminton, made more history by taking home the men's single title at the Indonesia Open, defeating home favorite Jonathan Christie 24-19, 21-8 in the final. He becomes the first Canadian to ever win a Badminton World Federation Super 1000 event. It's his first Badminton World Federation World Tour title. Lai advanced to the final after a 77-minute battle with Chu Tianqian of Chinese Taipei in the semifinals, which Lai won 21-19, 19-21, 21-19. And Victor Lai went into this tournament ranked 14th in the world. Chou Tianqian was ranked number 6 in the world, and Jonathan Christie was ranked number 5th in the world. So a little bit of a giant killing for. And since there is a photo of him absolutely beaming at his success here, and why shouldn't he? Definitely well earned. But there we go. This is Victor Lai. You will be hearing a lot from him over the next few years, because he just showed that bronze medal at the World Championships was not a fluke. He basically said, "Words can't describe how I'm feeling right now. To win my first world title at a Super 1000 in the legendary Istora Senayan is something I could only dream of." So yeah, that would have been super fun, big, really thrilling for him. I'm hoping that for much more success for him. He definitely seems to have put in the work, and now he's reaping the rewards. All right, kids and cups, that's all I got for you. Amori bisous, and we will see each other tomorrow. Bye. And hopefully at the regular time, because hopefully I will continue progressively feeling better. So there you go. All right. Bye, everyone.